Hello gentlemen, barbarians, savages, it's the Rooster here, and today we're going to talk about the Greenbelt MGTOW and all the things that go along with that. So you've done your white belt stuff, you've done your yellow belt stuff, you've disregarded marriage, now you're moving on to your green belt. Right here, right up here, green belt. Cruising along up the MGTOW highway here, right? So here's the greenbelt situation. Greenbelt's a good place to be. This is kind of the point where you reject the long-term relationships, where you've said, all right, I understand marriage wasn't for me, but now, I don't even want the live-ins. I don't want the long relationships. It just seems to be too much effort, and I'm not winning on any of this stuff. So when you get to the green belt, the key point is this is when you reject long-term relationships with women. And that comes in three categories. There's three categories that you have to master in the green belt. Okay? That is sexual independence, emotional independence, and financial independence. Now, let me say those three things again. They're very important. Sexual independence, emotional independence, and financial independence. And I'll talk a little bit about what I mean about each one of those areas. Now, fundamentally what you're going to do is you're going to start using women only as utility, entertainment, and money. And when you get to that point, that's when you'll know that you're a green belt. Okay? So let's talk about sexual independence. Sexual independence is, it's easy. Just like Bill Burr says, rub one out like a man. Hey, you don't need these women for sex. Okay? There's enough porn on the internet at this point, and it's almost 2020, that you can have a different girl every freaking night. You can have a Chinese girl one night. You can have a Japanese girl the next night. You like a little chocolate, take a black girl, whatever. Just rub one out like a man. Sexual independence is probably the easiest one. And I think everybody's had the conversation with their dad. Just rub one out, man. It's the easiest thing to do. So I'm not going to talk too much about that until later when I talk about the three categories of special green belts. Okay, emotional independence. A lot of people, this is kind of hard to come around to, but it's kind of like the magic trick. As you become more and more MGTOW, it's kind of like the magician, the magician who knows how the magic trick is done, and then once you know how the magic trick is done, it's kind of like the magic isn't there anymore. That's kind of how you get your emotional independence too. You have to understand it's just a bunch of brain chemicals. It's just a bunch of endorphins and dopamine and all of that stuff that's going on that's making you emotionally dependent or codependent on this woman. And once you understand that it's all up here and it's not anything that's real, when you're lying in bed with her and you have that warm, gushy feeling, that's described as love. But it's not any different than when you take a toke off of a doobie or you shoot that heroin up in your arm. It's the exact same thing. You're changing your brain chemistry to give you an euphoric feeling. Okay? Or she's doing it for you. So that's how you really have to think about it as a magic trick when it comes to emotional independence, and understand how the magic trick and her entire body, actions, mentality, strategy, everything that a woman does is set up to give you that endorphin release, because that's how they get the hook in you. Just like that's how heroin gets the hook in you, or any kind of addiction. Okay? And then green belt. Think green. Financial independence. Think green. Green, green, green. The biggest, most important thing you can do as a green belt is get financially independent. When you're a yellow belt, I told you to start stacking cash. when you become a green belt, I really want you to stack cash. Okay? As a green belt, it is the most important thing you can do. And I said before that money shouldn't be the end all, because eventually you're going to get to a point where I'm going to tell you to stop making money at the black belt stage. But for right now, you need to make as much money as you can to get yourself into a position where you're financially independent. Now, financial independence is a very hard thing, because it's not just her. I mean, she is Lady Macbeth, and she is going to ride your ass. But there's something out there, that I've heard. And when you hear this, when you hear women say this, I want you to run as fast as you can. When they say things like, but I feel like we've earned it. When you hear that sentence, I feel like we've earned it. When you hear that come out of her mouth, you know you are writing a fucking check for something. If it's the classic example that I use is Christmas time comes around and it's time to go on vacation. But you told her, over the summer, don't spend a bunch of money on Labor Day. Don't spend a bunch of money on the 4th of July. Don't spend a bunch of money for a party on Memorial Day. But what did she do? She had to have a pig roast. She had to have a freaking barbecue. She had to have the pontoon boat. She had to have the big motor that was bigger than her neighbor's motor, And, she had to have the big party at the end of the summer. Well, now there's no freaking money. But she's going to come to you before Christmas when it's time to go on vacation, and she's going to say, I feel like we've earned it. And that's how you go into debt. Okay? My advice is don't do any of those parties. Don't do any of that shit. Don't play the game keeping up with the Joneses, because that is a female mindset. And it's fashion over function. Okay? Throwing parties and having events and spending a lot of money to show off to the people on the street or your neighbors or the neighborhood or the people you work with or the people that she works with, it's all Machiavellian. It's all BS. It's a waste of your resources for her to gain social power in her community. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you as a guy. You know what your social power is? Coming up with the next freaking antibiotic. You know what your social power is? Learning a freaking 10-minute riff on your guitar. You know what your social power is competing at the highest level of whatever it is that you're doing in sports or academia or whatever. That's your social power. She doesn't have that. Okay, so she needs to spend money. Keeping up with the Joneses is the biggest way to keep you, Mr. MGTOW, Mr. Greenbelt. She is going to keep you from being financially independent by keeping up with the Joneses. We need a new car because the guy down the street got a new car. That Cadillac's really nice. Well, what's the matter with our, the Ford Probe? Or what's the matter with my pickup truck? No, we need to get a Cadillac because the neighbors have a Cadillac. No, we don't. Fashion, function. Function is always more important than fashion. Okay? The other thing that comes into this, you feel like you've earned it kind of syndrome, is credit card debt. When she's buying shoes and she's buying clothes because she feels like she's earned it. When she has to have a big house, you've got a 3-bedroom house. Let me tell you something. You can raise any size family that you want in a 3-bedroom house. 1 bedroom for you. The other 2 bedrooms are for the kids. Law requires that the girls go in 1 bedroom, the boys go in the other. You can have bunk beds in both of them. That's 4 kids. Most people only have 2 kids. You don't need a bedroom for each kid. You don't need a bathroom for each kid. That's all female mentality. And you shouldn't even be thinking about having kids and anything like that anyways, because you're going MGTOW and you're going to be long term, right? But some of you guys that are watching this, I'm sure you're married, and I want to throw some bones out there to help you get along too. because it affects you too, because she's spending your money. Okay? So financial independence, you have to have it. Don't play the game. I feel like we've earned it. Don't play that freaking game with her, because here's the facts. You've either earned it or you haven't earned it, or you've earned it and you've already spent it. Okay? And most of the time, if you've earned it and you've already spent it, don't freaking go into debt to play her social game, because it's all socialization. 95%, no, not 95%, 85% of purchases that are non-functional, not a lawnmower. Lawnmower's functional, okay? Clothes are functional, boots are functional, high heels not so much, but non-functional items that are just social items, 85% of those purchased by women or caused to be purchased by women, influenced, okay? Don't do it. All right, so sexual independence, emotional independence, financial independence. Now, let's talk about 3 very special types of green belts. These guys are right here. You got your max, your pimps, and your players. And you got your sexual independence, your emotional independence, and your financial independence. Now, the special thing about these 3 groups of green belts are they have mastered 2 of the categories, and they're lacking in 1. And that's why I put them in the green belt. They're not actually really green belts. They're still yellow belts trying to become green belts, because they haven't mastered 1 of the categories. But I still count these guys as green belts because they are really good, and they have 2 of the categories under control. And 1 of the categories that they have is a codependency. Now, if we talk about all 3 of them, you will understand individually each one of the codependencies that these 3 categories of men have. Okay? Right here, max. Right here, players. Oop, over here, players. And right here, pimps. Okay? Now, what do max have down? Max have money and sex controlled, right? What you talk about a Mac, you think about a Mac from the 70s. I don't really see many of those guys around anymore, where a Mac is somebody who just lives with a girl, and a Mac kind of is someone who flips the script, the mental script on a woman, and is kind of doing the opposite. Instead of being a provider for a woman, the woman becomes a provider for the Mac. So they get sex as much as they want, and they get money from the woman, but where's their downfall? Where's their downfall? It's that emotional connection. That emotional connection that keeps them there, right? Now, most Macs, I would say, nowadays, are what I call child support Macs. And that means that their downfall is the financial aspect of it. Not because of the woman that they're with. They're getting the money from the woman that they're living with or whatever, and they're getting the sex from that. But the reason that they've become a Mac is because of child support with a previous woman. These are the Macs that I see. And we all know them. That guy who's 35 years old, and he's got 3 baby daddies from 3 previous marriages already, and he has to work under the table as a bartender because he can't have his money on the table, because the minute it shows up, she takes it out of his taxes. She garnishes his wages. So he's getting paid cash. This Mac is probably living with a woman to have his rent paid for by her. So, yeah, he's Macking it, and he's getting all the sex that he wants from this woman, but the reason that he's got a Mac and be a Mac is because he's got child support payments and he's trying to live on $300 a month. So living as a Mac is not a good life. And I know, at my age, I know at least 3 guys over my lifetime that went through a period where they were Macs. I knew one guy that literally said he had to live on $500 a month. That was it. That's all he had, because the rest of his money went to child support. And he'll tell you stories about going out to eat, and he wouldn't even buy dinner for the woman. Not because he didn't want to, because he couldn't. He couldn't afford to, right? And he's living with her, so he cooks and he cleans and he does the freaking job of what women used to do to get his rent paid. That's a Mac. But the Macs nowadays that I see, they're child support Macs. So don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Okay. Then you got the pimps. Okay. Huggy Bear from the 1970s, right? You don't see too many of those around anymore either, right? It's not like it used to be. But what do pimps have? Pimps got the money coming in, and they got the sex that they want, right? But they have to use an emotional addiction on the woman to keep that going. And generally what that is drugs. I don't know if you can see it on there. I wrote them down here on the bottom. Child support up here. Okay. Mother need, love need, and drugs. Okay. They use a female codependency to flip the script, and generally pimps, they're either drug dealer, most of them are drug dealers too. They use heroin or cocaine or crack or marijuana to keep these women coming around and working for them. Okay? I told you about Amy, the one chick that I had who, she basically lived with me, but I dated her for probably a year and a half, and she was freaking blowing her fucking dealer, twice a week to get free weed from him, He wasn't making any money off of her, but still, that's how strong that addiction to drugs is. We've all heard the term crack whores, and we've all met them, and we've all seen them walk in the streets, and we know what they do. And for $20, they'll blow you. They take the money back. They give it to the pimp. The pimp goes and gets them some crack or heroin or whatever to keep their addiction going, so they don't get their drug sickness or whatever. They don't get feeling bad that day, right? So while pimps, it seems like they have the greenbelt thing under control, they're still attached to that freaking woman, right? At the very least for their money. But they have to use an emotional addiction to cocaine or whatever to keep that relationship going. So it's a codependency. And then last, you got the players. Now, I know about you players. Everybody thinks that players are so cool. They go into the bar, they do the PUA, they pick up all the chicks, and they hit the door, right? And players, they get sex and everything like that, but they spend money. They got to spend money to do that, to be a player. And here's the dirty little secret. I know what's up with you players because I know a lot of guys that were just like you. And what you get off on is not the sex. You get off on the I love you. You're playing the short-term game, which sex is coming from that. But you're really waiting for that time 4 weeks out, 6 weeks out, maybe 90 days. The longer it is, the more succulent it is. But you're waiting for that minute when she says, I love you, and then you get that endorphin release. You're doing the same thing that women do because you have the male mother need and you're emotionally codependent on women. You get off when they say, I love you. The sex and all that shit that you've had for the last month or 2 months or 3 months doesn't matter. You get that little endorphin release when she says that, and you know what? You're out the door the next day and on to the next one. I know what's up with that. I know what you're doing, players, and I know what you're about. But you're still codependent emotionally because you need that male mother need, and you need that little twinge when she says I love you, and you know you got her caged and she's boxed in, and then you walk away. That's where you get your endorphin release, right? So that's just a little bit about those three green belts right there. And if you're in those categories, if you're even slightly in those categories, now you know where your weakness is. You know where your strengths are, and you know where your weakness is. Work on your one weakness area, become a full-fledged green belt, and then we can move on to freaking blue belt, right? So let's talk about some more stuff. All right, as a green belt, you've rejected long-term relationships. Okay, your biggest, scariest, worst case scenario in dealing with women now is rape. Okay? Date rape, rape, or what I call regret rape. That's the worst one of all, right? Now, what are the tools that we've learned up till now? Time, distance, and shielding. Time, distance, and shielding. They're still in effect. You use those three tools to protect yourself from rape, or regret rape, or date rape, right? First one, like you said, rub one out. You know, there's enough porn out there. That's your time. When you think about it, how much time does even Netflix and chill cost you? Netflix and chill is a good 6 hours, right? You got to clean the freaking house. You got to freaking take a shower. You got to get your shit ready. You got to get everything set up. You got to freaking order the pizza. You got to go do a beer run, chips, all that stuff, right? And then she comes over. You got to have freaking half an hour of fucking touchy-feely, blah, 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 see how it's going to be, turn the movie on, and then you got to fucking work it for the next 3 hours to get what you want. How much easier is it to just freaking pull up some Pornhub, bang, bam, boom, 7.5 minutes later, you're done, hop in the shower, get out, and you're on the golf course 45 minutes later. Okay? Time, distance, and shielding. Just don't waste your time with it. Do your own thing. Follow your own freaking path. Don't waste your time with them. And you'll be better off for it. You'll have more time in your life to do the stuff you want to do, right? Distance. Okay? As a green belt, you're going to want to become very affectionate with hotel rooms. Okay? Don't bring them to your house. Don't go to their house. Sometimes single women end up having husbands. It's surprising how many single women I've met have husbands and boyfriends. And those boyfriends and husbands have shotguns. And they can kill you. So do not ever go to a fucking woman's house. Ever. I'd tell you this one story. I'm not going to do it though, but I picked up a chick in the Philippines and went to her house, and her husband came home in the middle. And dude, it was just like in the movies, man, out the back window. It was crazy. Don't do it, man. Hotel rooms are your friend. That's your distance. Keep their distance away from your stuff. You don't want them to know where you live. You know, I see a lot of guys, you know, the classic thing that a woman will ask you is she'll play some game about your age or your height or your hair color or eye color or something like that. And the whole ploy is to get you to pull out your driver's license. And, you know, she'll be like, oh, you're not that tall. You know, yeah, I am. I'll prove it. Pull out your driver's license. And when you pull out your driver's license, she's mentally recording your freaking address. Okay? Where you live. Okay? She doesn't care about, she knows, she can see how tall you are. She just wants to see your driver's license and see your name, your full name. Okay? And that comes to the next thing. Shielding. Time, distance, and shielding. Okay? First names only. Okay? As a green belt now, do not ever use your last name. Do not ever tell them your address. Okay? You're not, and I keep saying this isn't really true full-on MGTOW because you're not getting rid of women completely. You're just getting rid of long-term relationships. I'm assuming you're still going to do one-night stands, go to the bar, pick up chicks for the weekend and stuff like that as a green belt, right? Because you haven't fully learned your lessons yet. You still need some more pain and suffering in order to get to blue belt. So First names only. Use hotels. And don't stay. Do not stay. Pay cash. Don't use a credit card. Because she leaves the next morning from the hotel, she can find out the name on the credit card. Pay cash. Okay? And that's good anyways. You don't want to go into debt because you're trying to get financially independent as a green belt. Remember? Okay. Let's talk about desire and discipline at this level. Desire and discipline. Okay? Rubbing one out, you're going to lower your desire, increase your discipline. Okay? And desire is about outward validation. Okay? And discipline is about inward validation. Okay? So this is a little bit new concept for you to think about. But remember how I was telling you about keeping up with the Joneses, and I feel like I've earned it, and we can spend this money. We can spend this money, which means I can spend your money. That's all outward validation. She's looking for validation from the neighbors, her friends, the people she works with. That's what women get off on. Same thing with the marriage industry. It's all outward validation. It's desire. Okay? Lessen desire. Increase discipline. Okay? You really don't need any outward validation in your life as a MGTOW. Very, very, very little. Very little outward validation. Most of your validation comes from the inside. Okay? Now, why do I say that you have to have inward validation? This goes on to my next step, right? Just like on the Titanic, and just like male disposability tells you, you have to get this in your head. Nobody gives a fuck about you. What'd you just say? Nobody gives a fuck about you. You're a man. Nobody gives a fuck about what kind of car you drive. Nobody gives a fuck about how big your house is. Nobody gives a fuck about that. Because if you lost your job tomorrow, the woman that you're with doesn't view you as a potential mate anymore, you're gone. And all the men that were at work with you that you thought were your friends, the first thing that goes through their mind is, oh, cool, he's not here anymore. Maybe I can get his job. But fundamentally, men don't give a fuck about you. And women don't give a fuck about you. Okay? They don't give a fuck. Now, you can either be Kierkegaard or you can be Kant, right? The existentialist philosophers. And Kierkegaard was like this. Oh my God. Nobody cares about me. Or you can be Kant, who said, fuck, this is awesome. Nobody gives a fuck what I do. Right? I choose to be Kant. Okay? I don't choose to be Kierkegaard. You can take it two ways. You can either sit there, oh fuck, nobody gives a fuck about me. Or you can say, holy fuck, I just come to a realization. Nobody gives a fuck. This is awesome. And that opens up all the fucking freedom. All the freedom that you want in your life. I do what the fuck I want now. Who gives a shit what the neighbors think? I piss off my fucking front porch in the middle of the fucking day. I don't give a fuck. So, knowing that you're male disposability, right, and nobody gives a fuck about you, that frees you up to not give a fuck, right? Now, you're on the Titanic, and I've talked about this in my gynocentrism videos, but it's all based on policing. There's a man there that says, women and children first, women and children first, women and children first. You can't get on a lifeboat. As you're going down the MGTOW road, and as you're going now from yellow belt to green belt, you need to start having a mentality. And the mentality isn't, I'm going to fight my way onto that. I'm going to beat the fuck out of that dude. I'm going to throw 3 women off that fucking lifeboat, and I'm going to get on that lifeboat. No, that's not the way to think about it. That is not the way to think about it. Do not do that. especially as a green belt. You're going to get squished. Okay? What you need to think about is, what if I built my own lifeboat? What if I brought my own lifeboat? Yeah, that would work. I could have a little freaking backpack when I get on the Titanic. Plan ahead about 3 days earlier than everybody else. I got a little inflatable freaking raft. Shit starts hitting the fan. I go to the back, go to the stern. Nobody's looking. Blow that motherfucker up, jump in it, and start paddling away. Holy shit. Isn't that a fucking idea, Rooster? You're a fucking genius, Rooster. Yeah. Now, when the fucking Titanic sinks, now that fucking dude who's sitting there with his hand out, now he's in the fucking water. The guy that was saying, women and children first, women and children first. You're in a big fat life raft that you made yourself. You're floating around, you're independent, you got your fucking freedom. You're chilling out in the freaking icy cold water. You know, maybe having a fucking crab cake snack with some caviar and a little champagne that you stole off the main deck. And this motherfucker swims up to your life raft and says, hey, man, let me on. I'm one of the policemen that freaking polices men, and I need to fucking survive so that gynocentrism can survive. And you just take your little oar and you stick it out to him like you're going to let him on the thing, and then you go whap! Hit him right on the fucking head and watch him sink. Okay? And that's my point. If you build your own lifeboat or bring your own lifeboat, before the shit hits the fan, knowing how the system is, knowing what's going to happen, then you're set. You just float away and you're one of the survivors. And you didn't have to play the gynocentrism game. You didn't have to be policed by other men. You didn't have to play women or children first. You know, you didn't have to do any of that shit. You just went your own way. You did your own thing. You were completely independent. Now, how did I come up with this idea about build your own life raft? Well, actually, it happened during 9/11. And I was sitting at a Ford Motor Company watching the TVs with everybody else. And there was a little girl that was kind of in the cafeteria with her mom. She went to everybody was freaked out, scared and everything, and they went to the daycare and they picked up all their kids. And I was sitting down there having some coffee. It's the first thing in the morning. And these people were jumping out of the Twin Towers. They were jumping. You could see these little ants falling down. Splat. Splat. Like every 30 seconds somebody would jump out. And it's a horrible thing, right? But I remember this little girl, you know, goes to her mom and she's pointing at the TV. She says, why are those people jumping out? So, and, you know, the mom takes her, covers her eyes and starts walking away. Don't watch that or whatever. And as she's walking away, I hear the little girl say to her mom, why didn't those people bring parachutes? If they're going to jump, why didn't they bring parachutes with them? And that stuck in my head, and it has stuck in my head for the last 20 years. Little freaking 6-year-old girl's a genius. If I worked on the 70th floor or the 90th floor or the 100th floor of a freaking high-rise skyscraper, why don't I have a fucking parachute in my fucking desk? Why don't I just have one? Fashion and function. The social aspect of bringing a parachute and passing all of your co-workers and everybody seeing you bringing a parachute to work is more embarrassing than dying. It's more embarrassing to be seen carrying this freaking parachute in, like, what are you, some kind of crazy nutcase, screwball or something like that? Just for one day, put it in your desk, nobody would ever know it's there. But I tell you what, if you did that, you'd be freaking alive. You bust out the window, you jump out. You'd probably be dead from the people that remembered you brought it in, because they'd probably try to kill you to get it. Yeah. So that's the difference between being a regular person and being a MGTOW. Don't fall into the social aspects, the feminine, the female aspects. All of these social things that are put upon you are from the female. It's Lady Macbeth. Okay? So, build or bring your own life raft. Desire down, discipline up. Fashion doesn't matter. Function matters. Nobody gives a fuck about you. Frees you up to not give a fuck, right? Alright, I talked about date rape, regret rape, time, distance, and shielding. As a green belt, that's the biggest thing that you're worried about right now is rape. You're not going to get fucked over in marriage because you're not getting married. You're not going to get fucked over on the rent and all of that shit that the dudes in long-term marriages get fucked over on. Now you just have that instantaneous issue when you fuck this chick. Is she going to go to the cops the next morning and regret rape your ass and put you in jail for the next 30? Or is she going to get pregnant? Okay? All right. So that's about all I have on the green belt. Get your sexual independence, get your emotional independence, get your financial independence. Okay? Something to think about moving forward now. Aside from making your own life raft and building your own life raft or bringing a parachute, is I want you to think about what is a Renaissance man and what is a self-made man. I want you to think about these two aspects. When you think of a Renaissance man, what do you think of? And when you think of a self-made man, what do you think of? Okay? So those are two things for you to think about as we move to blue belt. And I'll have some more katas for you guys. A blue belt probably within the next week. And that's all I have. So as always, take it easy.